This is Lewis Hart for The Ring Magazine. Delighted today to be joined in Brentwood with Frank Smith as the week comes to a close. Before we do get into everything that's been in a very, very busy week, how's things? How are you?
Good, congrats to you on your new job. Also, I never knew it was Lewis Hart. I thought it was Louis Hart.
It's always been Lewis. I was having a chat about that today. Graduation, someone called me Louis as well, so ruined a great lifetime moment. But yeah, now you know, mate.
Well, Lewis Hart, congratulations on your new job, mate. End of the week.
Perfect, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, great start to the new year, and obviously a great start to this week, and great start to the new year for Matchroom as well. I guess we'll obviously jump straight into it. Announcement of Eubank Jr versus Benn on Tuesday evening, I think. Obviously a massive fight over the line. Obviously, it's reported by Coppinger on the Monday, confirmed later on. But yeah, I guess for yourself, how good is it to finally have a massive fight over the line?
Yeah, look, it's been years in the making. You know, what was it? It was from when this fight happens to when it was originally supposed to take place, nearly 2.5 years. And we've been working through it. It's been a long process, but we're here now. And it's a massive fight. I think outside of Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury obviously now retired, it's the biggest fight in British boxing. Yeah. And it's a fight that people want to see, and it's a fight that is going to be huge by the time it comes around. I don't know if you remember the feeling of fight week the first time around and how big that felt. And this is going to be tenfold of that.
I was going to say, and I think it's fair to say, from when that first fight got made, it's a different fight now, and there's obviously a lot of things that went into that with obviously the failed drug test and other things with it. But it's fair to say this fight, would you say it's a different feeling? It's even bigger in a sense?
Yeah, it's a lot bigger. The story's a lot bigger, and at the same time, the individuals have got a lot bigger. Like Conor Benn especially, his profile from there to now, he's been whether for the right or wrong reason, he's been spoken about every day. Every interview, Conor Benn's name has come up, and he's been called out by every name. Everyone wants to fight him. So it's a huge fight, and there's a lot more spite now. Before it was a fight that was built around the fathers. Don't get me wrong, this fight is happening because of the fathers. But at the same time, there wasn't really that dislike there the first time around, I don't believe. It was just built around the history of their fathers. This time around, there's dislike between the two of them. Both of them have got their reasons, and it's going to be a great build-up, but a great fight as well.
And when you look at this fight as itself, do you think there is so much when you mark it that it's like the new generation like myself, I wasn't old enough to experience Eubank Jr, Eubank Benn in the time, we can tap into that, but then also do you feel like there's a sense of the older generation because almost live through what they experienced in the first fight with the dads, and they can add the sons as well?
Yeah, look, the crossover is huge. When you think back to when these guys, when the dads were fighting, they had 15, 16, 17 million people watching their fights. They were household names, and their names stayed household names throughout, via their sons as well. It's gone through. So it's going to attract such a wide audience of people, this fight. And that's why the first fight was as big as it was. But this time around, with the extra spite, with everything that's happened, it's so much bigger. And it, like I say, it attracts that huge audience, from your age group, from 17, 18 years old, all the way through to 70-year-olds who will remember watching the dads fight back in the 1990s.
Yeah, definitely. I guess as for this fight as well, obviously I know that the situation for Conor is pretty clear now, it is clear now. But do you feel like you do understand that he is still going to come under questions? I'm sure when he has the media roundtables and various outlets that he may still get questioned about the position with it. Obviously, people still don't know what the clearing was or how it got into the system. So do you feel like there is still going to be them questions that Conor will have to answer, especially on the fight week in the build-up?
I think the reality is there's always going to be questions from people. People are always going to have opinions, regardless of him going through the process people asked him to. It's always been a confidential process, and he's done what people asked him to do. And then it's like the next level of someone wants every single detail of a confidential matter. He was cleared by a body, but an independent body put in place to make that decision, who are specialists within that field, not me, not you, not the guy down the road. He was cleared by someone who understands what they're talking about. And that, in the most simple form possible, trying to answer the question is, you asked him to go and do that, he did that, but people have still got more questions, and like I say, I think he's always going to have people have an opinion on him. That's the truth. It's never going to go away. I think this fight, because it's the first fight after that clearance, is going to be where the most questions are from the media. And then from there it dies away. Like how many fighters have been in this position that he's been in, where they've been cleared, and then it's slowly over time, I guess, never forgotten about. But how many times can you ask the same question? I'm sure those questions, that pressure's going to be there for this fight. But as time goes on, that will drift away.
Yeah, it's only I asked that because obviously it is it's a main talking point when you do talk about this fight. Is the first fight falling off, and I can't imagine it's something that Eubank's going to be silent on. I'm sure he'll probably mention it in the build-up, and it will get mentioned in the build-up. So you think obviously Conor be prepared for sort of whatever comes his way when those things are said.
Yeah, as I say, again, a lot of the detail around it is confidential and will remain confidential. But he did what was asked, and the National Anti-Doping Panel cleared him and said he served no ban. So he did what people asked him to do. And in the most simple way of answering that question, that is the answer. But look, people are always going to want more. People are always going to push for more. But that's what he did. He did what you asked him to do, and he got cleared for a reason decided by a panel who were put in place independently, not via pressure from me, you, anyone. Independently sit there to decide, and they just made a decision.
I did have to ask about the rehydration as well. Is it? I know Eubank spoke out against it with a tweet, but is there a rehydration clause for this fight?
Not a question for me, mate.
Okay. Who is it a question for?
Conor and Chris.
Okay. Yeah, but I get. But you would have some idea if he has to rehydrate.
Don't get involved in the big details, me, mate.
Come on. But yeah, obviously, that's always when it comes to rehydration clause, it's always something that comes under criticism. I guess where would you stand with it? Because Conor's obviously the one coming up 2 weights, and Chris is the one coming down. But where do you stand on that whole ordeal?
I mean, look, rehydration clauses in boxing, they've been in place, especially the IBF. It's a rule that the IBF have themselves, is a rehydration clause the next day after the weigh-in. So it's there for fights. It's not just in fights where there could be private negotiations. The IBF have rehydration clauses. I think the weight is a big thing. Obviously, the first fight was made at 157, a weight that Chris had never done, but I'd obviously agreed to do. He felt he could do comfortably. This fight is at 160. This fight is at Chris's natural weight, a weight that he's been at for a long time. Conor's coming up 13 pounds, and Conor isn't a huge welterweight by any means, So I think there's positives from both sides. Chris is at his natural weight where he feels fit. Chris isn't a huge middleweight. Hence why when he went to 168, I think he came back to 160. I don't think he would be much more than 168, 170 in the ring. I mean, I've never weighed him, so I'm not sure. But, he's not that kind of... He's very strict. Like, you see him even out of camp. He never lets himself go. And I don't think he's someone who gets that heavy. So, I think the bigger piece is Conor coming up 2 weight divisions. That's going to be tough. His last fight was at 157, I believe. I think his fight before that, 154. But so it is a big step. It is a big step for Conor Benn. But it's what he's agreed to do. Moving up to middleweight to Chris's division, and Chris should be. This is the division he's comfortable in. So let's see.
With it being a 2-fight deal as well, is there any plan in place? I know when Fury Usyk, for example, done their 2-fight deal, one of the deal was, look, we have to get this second fight in before the end of the year. Would that still be the aim? Is it still that we'll see Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. fight twice this year?
I think that's a natural time frame, for a fighter, coming off a fight of this magnitude. Obviously we're looking at April time for this fight, and then I think by the end of December look to fight again. You don't want to be waiting too much longer than that. That's 7-8 months at the maximum time period. Ultimately that's what they'll be focused on.
Would they both be in the UK then, fights?
I think let's see how things play out. The focus is for a big UK event, April, and then we go from there.
Yeah, I was just say the venue is. I mean, it's pretty well known. Tottenham Hotspur is likely where we'll see it on April 26th.
Hopefully, that would be. It's something I've spoken about for a long time. I think Tottenham's a tremendous venue. We obviously had a great night there with Usyk against Joshua. Not the result we wanted, but a tremendous show. You know, Derek Chisora and Tyson Fury boxed there as well. So I think it's undoubtedly the best stadium in the UK and up there in the world. You know, in terms of the setup of that venue. So that would be a great place to host it. We'll wait and see.
A bit like with it being in London and a bit of a random one. Obviously, it's on the same weekend as the London Marathon. Like, is there no worries and I'm not saying that London Marathon is going to overtake that, but in terms of like traffic going into London, there's no worries really with that.
No, I mean, look, London's used to it's used to hosting major events day in, day out. So that's something we'll work through. You know, we're speaking to the mayor's office as well around it. But it's a massive event to be brought to London. You know, and I'm very confident and happy we can get everything together. We're used to doing these kind of things. There's huge football matches every weekend in London, across London. There's huge concerts, there's huge events, festivals, etc. So I'm relaxed with that, and I'm sure we'll get in. We might even be able to get into the starting line of the marathon. You know, if we get the event finished early enough.
I've got that does bring. I've got to give a shout out. I've got to give a shout out to Oscar Bevis, mate, because obviously he's working on the night. And I said to him, are you still going to run the London Marathon? He was like, I don't sleep anyway. So, credit where credit's due for him.
What time he's going for?
He told me it was sub 3:30.
Decent. I don't think I could do under 4 hours.
That's good to have a goal, though. Good to have a goal. I did actually want to ask you on sort of something else as well. About Eubank Jr. and Benn, and on Talk Boxing with Spencer Oliver, Simon Jordan and Joshua Boazzi, they spoke about, you know, Turkey's dream fights that were spoken on Frocham Fighting. Eubank Benn was the one discussed, and Simon Jordan said he had no interest in the fight. I didn't know if you had sort of any comments on Simon having no interest in that.
I mean, Simon likes to be divisive, say things that get people talking. I suppose he won't be there on the night either.
He did get an invite from Turkey, but Frank was like, I'm not going to invite him, but Turkey said he would be invited, so he could be there. Is he invited from Matchroom? I
mean, look, if he's a great friend of ours here at the Matchroom business, but if he's not interested in the fight, then I don't see why I'd want to be there. I'm sure he won't be talking about it too much on his radio show. That keeps him relevant.
Is there any idea on the undercard for April 26th? I know one of them was discussed, was Bacoli, a Jagbar. Likely that lands on the Eubank Jr. Benn undercard?
I think it's all being worked through now. You know, there's discussions ongoing on the undercard, and hopefully news soon. Look, the main event is so big in its own right that it doesn't need a huge undercard. There will be, I'm sure, a great undercard on there, but it's such a big fight. You know, and I think the focus right now is on the main event. The undercard hopefully will get worked out very soon, but there's some exciting things being spoken about for it.
Yeah. On the topic of Turkey Al Sheikh there, he was on White and Jordan yesterday, and he spoke about numerous sort of fights, and he mentioned Anthony Joshua. He said he'd like to see the Deontay Wilder fight. Do you think that that's a really realistic proposition? Like, is that a route you want to go down when it comes to someone like Wilder, who's obviously come off the back-to-back defeats with Parker and Zhang?
Look, I love that fight. I think it's a great fight. If you think about Fury not being available, at the end of the day, boxing is also about narratives and making fights that people want to see and fights that have been spoken about for years. Anthony Joshua against Deontay Wilder is a fight that people have wanted to see for years. And yes, they've had losses, but as we speak about now, losses shouldn't mean what historically in boxing they have meant. We want to see the best fight the best in great fights and fights that get people excited. And Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, regardless of results of recent time that you mentioned there, it doesn't really matter. People want to see fights that interest them, and that is a fight that will interest people. It's a fight I'd love to see, you know, especially, I think that Tyson Fury is the number one preference. Obviously, as we've spoken about, he's now retired. If he changes his mind again as he's done before, happy days, and we can make that fight great. If not, Deontay Wilder is definitely on that list of potential fights that can be made.
Turkey also spoke about Bacoli in Africa. I think that's a real mouth-watering proposition for anyone. For yourself, when you do see events and you see events put on, do you think a show I know it's a massive continent, so I'm not sure where it would be, but do you think a show in Africa would be a realistic proposition?
Yeah, I think there's been lots of talk there over the years in a number of African countries to host big events. I think that boxing as well, with the drive of Riyadh season, Turkey Al Sheikh, and the events he's been putting on, it makes it difficult in other territories, really to compete, being honest, and put shows on. But I definitely think there's a huge drive and desire to do more events. We've had numerous conversations there over the years, across, like I say, in many countries across Africa, and that's definitely something we would love to do. We'd love to try and see if we can plan something out there. Our business is about putting on events, putting on huge shows around the world. So hopefully we can get something up and running.
And just touch on you on that conversation that Turkey was having. He was talking about putting on shows in collaboration with the Ring, and Eubank Benn being one of them. What are the differentials, I guess, from the Ring, from like a Ring show to Riyadh season? Like, what can you say on that? What would be different? Is it the fact of, look, Turkey just wants to put on shows outside of Saudi, and that would be a Ring show, where the Riyadh season ones are in Riyadh? Yeah,
I think Riyadh season is obviously a government event. Ring, as far as I know, is a more private business, and something that His Excellency is really got behind and put a lot of time and effort behind, and sees a huge future for. And I think these international events that he was speaking about around the Ring magazine and being involved, they'll probably be different in terms of, like I say, the government involvement, I guess. But that's more a question from that side to understand. It's just great to see big events happening. The biggest events in the sport. When you look at the list of fighters that His Excellency spoke about signing, and having signed across Ring events, I mean, it's like the who's who of boxing, isn't it? Massive events month after month, and it's just showing that the appetite is there for the long term of the sport. It's not. Many people speak about, could this have been a one-off thing? Could this have been 1 year? But when you start looking at the plans and the outlook and what's being put together, there's huge appetite for the long-term growth of this sport, which is great for everyone involved. Yeah.
And with the making of Eubank Benn as well, we've seen Eddie and Ben getting a little bit more friendly now. Is there a sign of, I guess, a working relationship now with Boxer and that? I know you know a lot, but is that a positive sign?
I mean, look, I've spoken to Ben more times in the last 3 or 4 days than I have in my whole life. I've always said, we've always been, everything we do is very professional as a business. Like we say things in interviews. At the end of the day, we want to make the best possible fights for our fighters. We want to do good business and things that make sense. If that means working with competitors, then we're here to do it. We're mature, and I think you don't always have to have the best relationship with someone. You don't always have to go out for beers with them. You don't have to get on day to day. Like, it can just be work. And we've always been open to working with Boxer and Ben and his team and Baz, and so and I'm sure that will continue. But we're still going to be competitors, is the reality of it. But we've made fights with them many times in the past. We've had fighters on their shows. It's never really been us standing in the way of that relationship. Yes, we may have openly in these interviews said things, and I stand by what I say, but at the same time I'm a grown up and I can say one thing and do business. That's life. You get on with it. So yeah, we'll see how things play out. He's called me a few times the last few days, so I'm sure many things can happen.
Absolutely. Did have to ask about Tyson Fury retiring. Obviously massive news, and it does come with its sceptics and whatever. I mean, I spoke to Spencer Brown. He seems pretty convinced that he's done. But where do you stand on the retirement of Tyson Fury?
If it's the end, amazing career, amazing things he's done in the sport, and been written off time and time again at many points of his career, and come back and showed, what he can do, and I think he's made a lot of money, obviously. He'll want to spend time with his family, but we've been here, 4 times, 5 times where he's retired and then come back and then retired and then come back. So who knows? It's a great negotiating technique, isn't it? If that's like his aim is to negotiate an Anthony Joshua fight, say you're retired. But I think if it is, like I say, if it is honestly, because at some point he will retire and it will be the truth.
So is that sorry to cut you off, but is that a shame there? Because he may never get that appreciation when he fully retires, because it's like, you've heard this all before.
Probably, yeah. And it will take years for people to actually respect and appreciate, actually, no, he isn't coming back. But like I say, it's like, time will tell, won't it? Time will tell. I think the Anthony Joshua fight's too big and something that will, after a period of time, will go, actually, I want to do that. But let's see how it plays out. But going back to the point, if it is the time now, well done, congrats on an amazing career, because he's smashed it, hasn't he?
Last one from myself. I do have to ask about next week. A double header on DAZN and with Matchroom. Dalton Smith fighting for the European title. And a fight I think that deserves a real, going under the radar. Pacheco, Steve Nelson's a really, really good fight. With, it's fair to say probably a lot of jeopardy in that fight for Diego Pacheco. But yeah, real exciting time. I know you'll be in Nottingham, am I right in saying? Not Vegas, but yeah, still hopefully bringing the energy.
Yeah, 100%. I'll be here. We've got 12 hours of live boxing on next Saturday. We start in Nottingham, packed card, as you say. Dalton Smith looks to become European champion. He's won every other belt. This is the final one in his collection before he moves on to world honours. And I think after this, he is looking for anything. He'll fight Devin Haney. He'll fight Teofimo Lopez. He'll fight all of the big names in the division. He'll take that opportunity tomorrow. Even before this, many months ago, he wanted to fight Liam Parra. He wanted to challenge him for the world title. All of those fights were there. That he was calling out for, but European title, the next step for him. Ellie Scottney, back out, Ring Magazine champion, obviously, back out defending her world titles as well, fights Miyamoto on that card as Harry Scarf against Conor Walker, a brilliant fight in the UK. Ibrahim Spider Suleiman's out as well. We then go straight across to the US. We've got some great talent. Nishant Dev makes his professional debut. Zakim Moses in his second fight as well on there. Harley Medeiros on that card. Andy Cruz, who is just a sensational talent.
Sorry, just on Andy Cruz there as well. How likely is it, with it not being not really showing, not really knowing what's going on with Vasily Lomachenko, that he does put himself into a position where he does fight for a vacant IBF?
Possibly. Look, I think by the end of this year, Andy Cruz will be challenging for a world title. He's getting highly ranked across the governing bodies, and he's ready. He started his career straight into 10 rounders. He's a special talent, and we want to move him quickly because he needs to be motivated for fights, and he needs to be in those big fights, and that's what you'll see this year. And then the main event, obviously, as you say, Diego Pacheco. Great fight against Nelson. Diego Pacheco, tremendous ending to his last fight, unbelievable body shot. He's 23 years old. And when you see where he's at, his mandatory or number one position with the WBO, he's got huge opportunities ahead of him. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this year he's fighting for a world title. Canelo, we have to see what happens in the division with Canelo and what he decides to do. But there's massive fights, and Diego Pacheco has got a huge future. Just 23 years old. Quite amazing to see what he's done. But a big fight next Saturday, huge night of boxing, 12 hours, all live on DAZN around the world.
Cannot complain at all. Frank, great to be in your office. I do appreciate you giving the time, and thank you for the words as well, mate. Really, really appreciate the time, mate. Top man, thank you. Cheers, mate. Top man, thank you.